you start? Yeah? Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is my great honor and huge privilege to welcome you all, fellow shareholders, to the 27th Annual General Meeting of your company, holding today, Thursday, 21st July 2022. The time is now 11 o'clock. In accordance with the Corporate Affairs Commission guidelines on holding annual general meetings of companies using proxies, in line with COVID-19 protocols and in accordance with Article 53 of the Articles of Association of the company, which requires that we have at least 25 members represented in person or by proxies, representing 1/3 of the issued and fully paid up shares of the company being present. The meeting is considered duly convened, subject to confirmation of the same by the registrars of the company. We should all kindly note that these proceedings are being streamed live on YouTube. Will the registrar kindly confirm that we do have a quorum?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Directors.
Please.
Mr. Chairman, I noticed that they've included in our pack here the second stanza of the national anthem.
Yes.
Should we have started with the national anthem, or the intention is to end with the national anthem?
Well, we decided to do it slightly differently because the national anthem will serve. Could have done it as you suggested first, but we decided that by way of prayers, the second stanza will have the dual purpose of acknowledging and respecting our national anthem and at the same time having the prayers necessary to kick off the meeting. So it was a deliberate change from usual practice. Yeah, thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Directors, and esteemed shareholders. My name is Bukola James Cole, and I represent Coronation Registrars Limited, formerly United Securities Limited, and Registrar to Niger Delta Exploration and Production PLC. We have 2 shareholders attending in person and 109 shareholders attending by proxy, with a total of 102,577,365 shares, representing 47.22% of the issued and fully paid up shares of the company. With this information, we hereby confirm that a quorum has been formed in accordance with the Article 53 of the Association of the Articles of Association. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. James Cole. As I said earlier, I have the pleasure and the privilege of welcoming you to your company's 27th Annual General Meeting for the financial year ended 31st December 2021, and accordingly to declare this meeting duly convened. Well, we will now have the second stanza of the national anthem, which will serve as our opening prayer for divine guidance throughout these proceedings. Thank you.
O God of creation, direct our noble cause, guide our leaders right, help our youth the truth to know, in love and honesty to grow, and living just and true, great lofty heights attain, to build a nation where peace and justice shall reign. Amen.
Thank you. We will all be seated. My name is Ladi Jadisimi, the chairman of your company. I now call on other directors, the company secretary, the chairman of our statutory audit committee for the financial year 2021, the auditors, and the representatives of regulatory bodies to kindly all introduce themselves.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and esteemed shareholders. My name is Afolabi Oladile, and I am a director, a non-executive director representing African Capital Alliance.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and esteemed shareholders. My name is Ndep 27Th. I am the non-executive director of your company.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, esteemed shareholders. My name is Austin Olorun-Shola, and I am the non-executive director of your company.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and esteemed shareholders. My name is Thierry Georgia, and I am a non-executive director representing Petroleum Ocean Limited.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and esteemed shareholders. My name is Olugbenga Adeto, and I'm a non-executive director representing African Capital Alliance. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and esteemed shareholders. My name is Ndep 27th, and I'm the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of your company.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and esteemed shareholders. My name is Adegbola Adesina, and I'm the Chief Finance Officer of your company.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and esteemed shareholders. My name is Titi Omishori, and I'm the Secretary to your company.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and esteemed shareholders. My name is Olufemi Akinsanya, and I am the Chairman of the Statutory Audit Committee.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and esteemed shareholders. My name is Folorunso Hunga, and I represent the auditors, Deloitte and
I believe we have the representatives of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Okay, I think we can go on to the representative of the NASD Exchange. Okay, perhaps we can have them be introduced later. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to inform all members that notwithstanding that this meeting is holding by proxy, oh, sorry, I think we have them now. Is it muted? I think it's best for us to do this later. Maybe they can fix the glitch in the meantime. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to inform all members that notwithstanding that this meeting is holding by proxy, in accordance with Section 301, subsection 8 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020, the Register of Directors' shareholdings is available for inspection throughout the meeting. I now call on our company secretary to read out the notice convening this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I wish to confirm that the notice convening the meeting was circulated to everyone entitled to notification in accordance with Section 2411 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020. Secondly, I confirm that the instruments appointing proxies have been properly executed and lodged with the registrars.
Thank you.
I will now read the notice. Amended Notice of Annual General Meeting. Notice is hereby given that the 27th Annual General Meeting of the members of Niger Delta Exploration and Production PLC will hold on the 21st day of July 2022 at the boardroom of the company, situate at number 15 Babatunde Jose Road, Victoria Island, Lagos, at 11 a.m. to transact the following business. Ordinary business. To lay before the members the audited financial statements for the year ended 31st December 2021 and the report of the directors, auditors, and audit committee thereon. To declare a dividend, to re-elect directors retiring by rotation, to reappoint the auditors, to authorize the directors to determine the remuneration of the auditors, to elect or re-elect members of the statutory audit committee. Special business. To consider and, if thought fit, pass the following as special resolution. That the directors be and are hereby authorized, pursuant to Section 124 of the Company and Allied Matters Act 2020 and the Company's Regulation 2021, to cancel the company's unissued shares in the amount of 57,757,782 ordinary shares of 10 naira each. That the directors be also authorized to amend Clause 6 of the company's Memorandum of Association to replace the words the authorized share capital with the issued share capital, and to reflect the issued share capital of the company as 2,172,422,180 naira, divided into 217,242,218 ordinary shares of 10 naira each. That the directors are further authorized to take all such incidental, consequential, and supplemental actions thereto,
to execute all requisite documents and to give directions as may be necessary for the filing of the above stated amendments with the Corporate Affairs Commission and any other regulatory agency as may be necessary to give effect to the above resolutions. This notice is dated the 24th day of June, 2020, and was made by order of the board.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The chairman's statement, as well as that of the Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer, are contained on pages 18 to 24 and 24 to 30 of the annual report and accounts, respectively. Having circulated the annual reports and accounts earlier to all shareholders, may I crave your indulgence that we take both statements as read, provided there are no objections from a majority of shareholders. Yeah. Okay, thank you. But I would add, though, that I will encourage shareholders to please find time at their convenience to go through both reports, particularly that of the Chief Executive Officer, because it contains useful information in terms of what's happening in your company, what the immediate, medium, and long-term programs are. So there's useful information that shareholders, I'm sure, would find interesting. So at your convenience, I would urge that we take some time to go through them. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a report of the external auditors of the company's financial statements for the year ended 31st December 2021. Accordingly, I invite the representative of Deloitte and Touche to present their auditor's report.
Good afternoon, one more time. Like I said earlier, my name is Folorunsho Hunga, and I read the audit opinion. The audit opinion, as you have seen, is actually a 3-page document, or 4-page document as I have it here. And I would like to crave the indulgence of the chairman to permit me to read only a few paragraphs of it instead of going through all the pages.
Please go ahead. Please.
Thank you very much. Independent Auditor's Report to the shareholders of Niger Delta Exploration and Production PLC. Report on the consolidated and separate financial statements. Opinion. We have audited the consolidated and separate financial statements of Niger Delta Exploration and Production PLC and its subsidiaries, the group, and the company, set out in the financial statement, which comprise the consolidated and separate statements of financial position as at 31 December 2021, the consolidated and separate statements of profit or loss and other comprehensive income, the consolidated and separate statements of changes in equity, the consolidated and separate statements of cash flows for the year then ended, and the notes to the consolidated and separate financial statements, including a summary of significant accounting policies. In our opinion, the consolidated and separate financial statements give a true and fair view of the consolidated and separate financial position of Niger Delta Exploration and Production PLC as at 31 December 2021, and its consolidated and separate financial performance and statement of cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with International Financial Reporting Standards, the requirements of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020, and the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria Act of 2021. I'll now go to the last paragraph, which is a report on other reporting responsibilities. In accordance with the 5th schedule of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020, we expressly state that, 1, we have obtained all the information and explanation which, to the best of our knowledge and belief, were necessary for the purpose of our audit. 2, the group and company have kept proper books of accounts so far as appears from our examination of those books. 3, the consolidated and separate statements of financial position and profit or loss and other comprehensive income are in agreement with the books of account. Signed 27 June 2022 on behalf of Deloitte and Touche, Folorunshorhunga. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Folorunshorhunga. Now, may I invite the chairman of the Statutory Audit Committee, Mr. Femi Akinsoya, to present the committee's report. I would like to add that this committee is particularly important because, first of all, its majority on the committee are shareholders representatives, I think 3 in number and 2 from the board. But this committee serves as a further layer of audit and scrutiny, in addition to the internal audits of the company itself, and of course also in addition to the audit of the external auditors. And I have to say that throughout the years, we've been fortunate to have on this important committee very capable and able representatives who take the task very, very seriously. Now, Mr. Akinsoya will present his committee's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Esteemed shareholders, report of the Audit Committee to the members of Niger Delta Exploration and Production PLC. In accordance with the provisions of sections 404, subsections 4 and 7 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020, we have 1, reviewed the scope and planning of the audit requirements, and 2, the accounting and reporting policies of the group and company for the year ended 31st December 2021, and ascertained that they are in accordance with legal requirements and agreed ethical practice. In our opinion, the scope and planning of the audit for the year ended 31st December 2021, together with the consolidated and separate audited financial statements, were satisfactory. The external auditors had discharged their duties conscientiously and satisfactorily. We were satisfied with management's responses to the auditor's findings. Signed by myself, Olufemi Akinsoya. Other members on the Audit Committee for the year ended December 2021 were Mr. Edi Efekoha, shareholder representative, Mr. Afolabi Oladele, board representative, Chief Bola Akinola SAN, shareholder representative, and Mr. Ede Osayande, board representative. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Akinsoya. The audited financial statements for the year ended 31st December 2021 commences from page 92 to 202 of the annual reports, and the reports of the directors, auditors, and the Statutory Audit Committee have now been presented to you all. At this point, I'd like to invite our Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Adekbite Falade, to make a brief presentation to your company.
Esteemed shareholders, the chairman and members of the board of NDEP, the chairman and members of the Statutory Audit Committee, the company secretary, representatives of the registrar, representatives of the auditors, representatives of Security and Exchange Commission, management and staff of NDEP here present, the chairman of our host community trust fund, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to address you on this occasion of the 20th Annual General Meeting of your company, Niger Delta Exploration and Production PLC. In the next few minutes, I'll be sharing a few thoughts on what's been going on in our industry, and especially your company, in the context of the financial year that ended 31st December 2021. On the global level, and arising from the depressing impact of COVID-19 that peaked in 2020, the year 2021 witnessed a rebound of fortunes in the oil and gas industry. Demand for energy sources increased as restrictions in movement and travels eased. As businesses picked up and aggregate global economic prosperity improved, there was further demand for energy sources worldwide. Consequently, the industry witnessed a rally in the Brent crude oil price from $55 per barrel in January of 2021 to a peak of $84 per barrel in October. In 2021, we note the escalation of two additional key events that have both a present and future implication on the outlook of our industry. The first of these two events is the increasing clamor for decarbonization and the drive to attain net zero emissions as the world reconfigures its energy mix in a manner that portends sustainability and environmental friendliness. This campaign reached fever high pitch at the UN Climate Change Conference of the Parties, COP26, that held in Glasgow in November of 2021. This conference and other campaigns, both prior and after, have attempted to whittle down the prominence of fossil fuels in the long term. Consequently, different countries have been pursuing a net zero date and timeline. Our country, Nigeria, has chosen the year 2060 as its target for attaining net zero carbon emissions. The implications of these on investment flows, on funding, and reprioritization of projects are gradually manifesting. Let me assure esteemed shareholders that the board of your company is acutely aware and has fashioned out our own response that ensures we're able to maximize value creation in the immediate while positioning to remain a relevant and strong operator and provider of energy solutions into the distant future, even far beyond the 2060 target date. The second event is the onset of a fragile energy supply capacity worldwide. While the world reeled under depressing oil prices driven by excess inventories and COVID-19 impacts in the build-up to and throughout 2021, industry operators shied away from making critical investments in the development of fossil fuels. With the rebound of the aggregate global economy, the associated demand for energy solutions, the inability of renewables to match the current hype, the distortion of global and supply dynamics by the ongoing Russia-Ukraine crisis, the fragility of our energy supply has become a monster that everybody is trying to resolve. Analysts are of the view that this high oil price that we have today will remain with us for the near term. Let me come a bit local into our nation. There are two key events that are worthy of note in the year under review. The first is the passage of the Petroleum Industry Act after more than 2 decades from the very first attempt. The PIA signaled some fundamental shifts in certain areas of industry practice, notably in the areas of fiscals, governance, host community management, and a special focus on the downstream and midstream, particularly on the gas sector. It established certainty around crucial factors that are core to investments in the industry, and this is very good for us. The second key event is the worsening levels of crude theft while en route to the export terminal. This was more particular for operators on the east of the Niger who evacuate their crude oil production to Bonny terminal either via the Trans-Niger Pipeline TMP both lines operated by third parties. Our product production is routed to Bonny Terminal through the TMP for the purpose of sales to the export market. As at January 2021, the level of accrued loss to activities of pipeline vandals and thieves was about 28% of what we injected. This level of loss worsened and peaked at 90% loss by December 2021. In the process, establishing a year average loss of about 49%, which is more than 3 times what was experienced in the prior year. Let me state that this loss of crude to theft was not unique to us as a company and as an operator. It was the collective experience by all the operators on the east of Niger who were evacuating to Bonny Terminal as the point of sale. The situation became so bad in the course of 2021 that Bonny Terminal experienced deteriorating inflow of crude oil from about 200,000 barrels per day to barely 3,000 barrels per day, a situation that remains till date. And all this occurred in spite of intervention efforts by pipeline operators and government security agencies to arrest the situation. Permit me to delve into how your company fared under this operating environment. And for us as a company, NDEP, the following are the key highlights of the financial year 2021. Your company experienced a management change in 2021. Prior to 2021, Dr. Lai Fatono, the pioneer CEO, was recalled from retirement to hold forth until a substantive MD CEO will be appointed. I came on board as the product of that exercise and assumed duty on the 10th of February 2021. I would like to put on record the gratitude of myself and everyone else for the immense, sacrificial, and selfless efforts of Dr. Fatono during this period of recall. And I would like to state that I continue to enjoy the courtesy and privilege of that support, even as I speak today. With the support of the board of your company, I've had the privilege of onboarding other additional executives that includes the Chief Finance Officer, the General Manager running our refinery business, the Chief Technical Officer, the General Manager running our commercial operations. And together with other executives already in the company, we continue to drive the agenda for sustainable shareholder value creation. I'm proud to state that in NDEP, we are carefully but deliberately assembling the best of hands in the industry as we step up our efforts to be the center of technical, commercial, and financial excellence when it comes to operatorship in the energy industry. Operationally and from our Ogbele facilities, we ramped up efforts in the short-term oil and gas generation, leading to increased production across upstream, midstream, and downstream operating assets. We doubled up our efforts to achieve higher availability figures for our refinery trains. We confronted logistics and offtake challenges for our various refined products, and we deepened our plant architecture in a way that enhanced independent operations while strengthening the inbuilt integration. We doubled up our efforts on HSE and eliminated routine flaring of gas from our operations. We commenced the reassessment of hydrocarbon resources to allow us optimally plan and exploit same. We reviewed our drilling strategy and obtained the consent of the board to execute future campaigns in ways that will guarantee better performance. We strengthened our governance processes across board, including in critical areas such as procurement and contracting, ICT, and the likes. We commenced the implementation of an alternative crude evacuation program via the waterways as a medium-term solution to the increasing theft of our crude in the TMP. We also partnered with others to launch a bold and ambitious acquisition of the participating interest for the onshore and shallow offshore acreages of one of the leading IOCs in the country. And we renewed our interest in small Ogbele-type fields proximate to where we currently operate, so we can derive the benefits of clustered development. For purpose of confidentiality, which we signed up for these transactions, I will not be able to disclose further information at this point. We shall, however, keep you abreast as situation unfolds. As a result of all of these, your company achieved a crude oil production of 3.2 million barrels, representing 30% increase on the prior year's performance. Your company produced 9.4 billion scf of gas, representing 70% increase on the prior year's performance. Your company achieved in the process the highest daily production rate of 12,595 barrels per day and 53.8 million scf per day in the month of November 2021. In terms of refined product, we produced about 75 million liters, representing about 91% on the prior year. On the financial side, we ended up with a gross revenue of about $129 million, representing 58% increase on the prior year's performance. All these were achieved in spite of deteriorating conditions in our operating environment, driven principally by record high crude theft, and considering that sales from crude accounts for as much as 80% in our 2020 revenue, the significant improvement in revenue earnings from gas sales and refinery are the key reasons why we were able to muster the level of financial performance that we achieved in 2021. It is on this note that the board of your company had proposed the dividend recommended for ratification today. May I state our regret in hosting this particular edition of our AGM in the month of July, contrary to our plan to have done that prior to now. This was due to events outside of our control. But I'd like to assure that in subsequent editions, we will hold them before the month of July, as God will help us. We are halfway in 2022. The challenges in our operating environment have not abated. In fact, they have worsened. While we were planning for this year's operation, we set a number of ambitious targets for ourselves in delivering the value that your company thoroughly deserves. These targets were driven by clear expectations. Expectations that there will be a reprieve in the level of crude theft in the Niger Delta. Expectations that the ongoing efforts of the operators of the TMP to tackle the menace will improve things. Expectations that the destination terminal for our alternative crude evacuation system will be ready not later than the end of Q1 of 2022. Expectations that the interventions by government security agencies will result in significantly reduced levels of crude theft by the end of Q1. We could not be more wrong. The level of crude oil loss in the pipelines is higher than what it was in 2021. That said, as a value preservation strategy, we have deliberately and intentionally cut back on our upstream crude oil production. We have doubled up on the operation of our modular refinery to sustain value creation. We have invested efforts and times to make both the refinery operation and associated commercial arrangements more profitable than ever. In the context of this cocktail of measures, your company has been able to weather the storm and continues to do so. And we will do that sustainably throughout this year and beyond. We remain in relatively strong cash earning position. We continue to meet our financial obligations both in the present and for our planned growth programs. The foundation of the pre-investments made to create an integrated infrastructure across the value chain, coupled with the proactive, prompt, and laser-focused pursuit of value creation, has put your company in a resilient and thriving position. In the midst of the chaos we have found ourselves in, your company's future remains exceedingly bright and prosperous. We are following a structured process that will culminate in the desired listing of your company on the stock exchange. Work has started on this with respect to the assessment of options and the upfront planning. The indications before us suggest that we need to carry out a couple of fixes that are far from being simple in order to assure that the appreciable value will be raised for your investment upon listing. We crave your indulgence to allow us to do a thorough and proper job on this. And we'd like to assure you that the maximization of shareholder value remains a key priority, and we guide the timing of when this event would happen. Let me pause at this point to thank you for your trust and support to us as we continue to pilot the affairs of your company. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ndep Falade. I'm sure that all shareholders would have noted with alarm the staggering statistic related to the level of oil theft. The very latest figures of the percentage stolen went up as high as 94% stolen. And as the CEO said, in 2020, 80% of revenue came from more than 80 from crude, because of course the crude oil sales are in dollars. And so we can imagine that with the total absence of crude oil exports, the challenge facing the management was immense. Fortunately, again, due to the foresight of previous managers of your company, the fact that we have a refinery on site was a tremendous assistance in moderating and managing and seeking to maximize value from oil production. I mean, there's little point in producing oil more or less into a basket if you use the pipeline. And I think it is in this context that we need to recognize and appreciate the tremendous work done by management to have nonetheless delivered the results that they did for 2021, and to be able to propose, hopefully for adoption, a dividend payout of 20 naira per share. I'm sure we all also noted the plans that the management has to continue to increase shareholder value in spite of the extremely difficult environment which we have to assume may persist for quite some time yet. Part of this strategy is an alternate evacuation for our crude, which is ongoing and hopefully will be finished shortly. It's taken 7 months, 8 months, because we had to rely on third parties and the regulators to be able to commence using the alternate crude route. However, in the meantime, the management have also arranged for dollar sales of a couple of the products from the refinery. And since we're in the business of producing oil and gas, which is a diminishing resource, unless you want to put a finite date on when you're going to close shop, if all you do is keep on producing and not replacing what you're producing, and then of course what the environment are doing is to be applauded, because they have been actively seeking other sources of crude, and by a variety of means, looking for acquisitions, getting into very ambitious bids in spite of the difficult environment. So I'm sure you'll all join me in applauding the efforts of management, because the past, of course, was very impressive, but it's not irrelevant, but it's definitely history. So what matters really is the plans being put before us to keep on increasing the assets, at the same time to keep on maximizing value addition to your company. I'm sure we'll have a few questions later that may address some of these issues, but I just thought I'll make those brief comments. In accordance with the CAC guidelines, the company requested that shareholders submit their questions to the company's address at number 15 Babatunde Joseph Street, Victoria Island, Lagos, by email to the email address latest by 16th of July 2022, so that the company secretary could collate them. The questions received will be read out and answered, but before this is done, I would like to give our shareholders representatives that are physically present the opportunity to ask any questions they may have, so that all the various questions can be addressed together. It's my great pleasure to invite one of the very, very earliest investors in your company and one of the greatest shareholders that have constantly been advising and encouraging management, for which, we need to thank her, in the person of Mrs. Feyi Sholuade George, who should kindly take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear my voice? Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman, management, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I really cannot convey the joy that I feel, because I'm a founding member of this company. I'm not an early, I'm a founding member.
Okay. Correction well taken.
Joy. Not to worry. Yeah, my boy, you can. And I've always wished for this project become a template, a prototype, not only for people in Nigeria, but in Africa, and above all, a training ground for young people and for the difficulties, immense and very unforeseeable difficulties that are yet to confront all of us, all over the world. We can see today what's happening with fire and water. Nobody would have imagined that these kinds of things would happen. Really and honestly, I know you can feel me from my voice, but really what I can express, but I'm very happy, and I welcome these young people. And those of us that are older, it's important we're amongst you. Ọmọdé ò lè láṣọ títí kó lákìísà tàgbà. So you need a wallet, you need who can fall back on. Our chairman is a distinguished, well-known, versatile, well-educated and exposed personality. And sitting beside him is a very special person called Afolabi Oladele. I want to see your face, Afolabi. Yes. And you have all of these members. You have Fanny also. So I rejoice and I'm happy to encounter and to be part of this. Thank you very much. That's about it.
Thank you. Many thanks to one of our founding shareholders. Thank you. Thank you. Next, I invite Mr. Ariyo Olusekun to make comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I would like to commend directors, management, and staff of the company for the improved performance that has been presented. This has been achieved despite the scourge of crude debt, which is developing the industry. Key fundamental indices have shown improvement, even in dollar terms. So I want to commend you for achieving that. However, I note that the MD's report has already touched on maximizing shareholders' value. But I still want to advise that we put information, relating to our performance, our prospects, and even our assets in the investing public space, so that the stock market can reflect this positive information in proper pricing. The price is about 220 or thereabouts. It is far below the true value, of that stock. And information is the ingredient. It's the raw material for price making in the capital market. So I'll encourage that we do this. The MD has also touched on the stock split process and the full listing on the trading platform. I would just advise that we expedite action on this, so that the rewards of investors will not be in heaven. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Lusheko, thank you for your comments. Thank you. Next, I'll invite another distinguished shareholders, Mr. Shola Adeyo, to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I say good morning again to distinguished shareholders. Mr. Oladele, I salute my team. I appreciate this privilege, and I'd just like to note a few things for attention of the board as well as management. I think it's fantastic, really commendable the job you've done with the company in spite of the very difficult environment that we operate in. But I hope we are touching realism in the ratios of our growth. We are primarily in a business that earns foreign currency, and given the massive devaluation our currency has suffered in the past year in particular, and in the past few years, I hope it is not the currency revaluation that has exaggerated our growth, and for that matter, even the value of a dividend. So without prejudging the brilliant, diligent folks at the various committee levels, I hope this is continuously being noted and considered in valuing where we really, really are in our performances. The second point I'd like to point out is in human capital. I note the attention the management is given to this, and it's great to develop your employees and to even extend it to the environment in which we operate. I think it's absolutely existential. However, one of the recurring things we now talk about in Nigeria is the migration of our talented individuals. It's like MTN now seeing Coca-Cola as a competitor, probably even more than it does some of the telecom companies, because choices are being made between having a drink 50 meters down the road and buying a recharge card. So I haven't seen anywhere where this has been considered. Maybe we're totally insulated. Maybe we do actually give grounds in which they're just happy to be here. But I hope we've not taken it for granted and it's not something we overlooked. And that stretches to peer poaching. If you have very good people and the choices for them is between a competitor dangling a few dollars more or the choice of emigrating for a myriad of reasons, the result will be the same. I know for a fact that in the early 80s, or mid to early 90s rather, the banking industry suffered this, where at a point you had barely trained people who were managing offices far above their competencies at the particular points in their lives. I'd like to know if, in developing and creating additional value, our company is considering dual listing to Nigeria and London. We now know that there is tremendous inherent value and advantages in so doing. It's propelled and spurred share value of some of the listed companies on NGX at least tremendously. It's way beyond just fundamentals. It's for other reasons. So in looking at the landscape of creating value, please, as we work towards listing on a platform with deeper liquidity, you may want to look at this also. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed for making those very opposite points, which will be addressed together with the others. Thank you so much. Thank you. May we next have Mr. Gafar Enifolami.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. Number one, I want to commend the board and management for the consistent payment of dividends for the past 18 years that never stopped. So that's very commendable. Then secondly, I want to also talk about the Ogbele oil field. In that report, we made mention of a refinery being in that field. So I want to know our brands. When you go to the retail market, you see different brands you can buy. So I want to understand that. Do we have the refined product? Are we selling in our markets or outside our markets? So I want to know, sir. Then our vision, we said we want to be the leading energy company in Africa, providing solutions in a sustainable way. So my question is, what are the energy solutions we have been providing and that we are currently working at providing in the nearest future? So let us know. Then I want to also know our response and solution towards achieving clean energy. About 2 weeks ago, I went for a seminar, so I don't want to mention the company, it's an energy week, where this was discussed. We had a panel session and all that. So I want to know how we're also working towards stopping gas flaring. Then I want to commend the board and management also for the significant improvement in our earnings per share. I think we achieved 135 naira, 35 kobo this year, in comparison with 77 naira, 31 kobo achieved last year. So my question is, what have we done extraordinarily to achieve this feat from 77 naira to 135 naira? What is it that we have done so extraordinarily to achieve this? Then number 6, dividend per share. The one we are displaying this year is 20 naira compared to 7 naira we declared last year. So I feel it is too small compared to that EPS that we made. Do we have anything like dividend policy in place so that we have to be constantly following that policy? But if we have declared 50 naira out of this 135 naira, I think it's still okay. And we put back the remaining back into the business. MD is laughing.
No, sir. No, sir.
So, number 7, how do we continuously reduce environmental risks and impacts of our operations and reduce the use of fossil fuel and promote energy efficiency and water conservation where we operate? So I want to know what we are doing in that regard. Then finally, what ways have we been promoting sustainable use of natural resources and conserving biodiversity? Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Did you clap for me?
Actually, you do deserve the applause because, again, you made a number of very, very, very important points for management to, first of all, respond to, but definitely also take on board. So thank you very much. So I thank all our distinguished shareholders that have spoken, because each and every one of them have made extremely useful, important, and to the point comments. The managing director will now respond to those questions, and I will interject in one or two places as necessary.
Thank you very much to the esteemed shareholders for your very apt and very insightful comments and recommendations that you have made. I think it's not difficult to accept the commendation, so we say thank you for the commendation. Well, permit me to then speak to the issues that go beyond commendation and suggestions to those that require specific responses, and I will address them in the order in which they came in. On the issue of putting out information out there that help to reflect your company's performance, the prospects, and all of that to the public, especially to those whose activities would impinge positively on our share price, I'd like to assure you that that is already work in progress. We have retained the services of a very solid and reputable investor relation outfit that is helping us to cut the chase and generate a template for disclosures. We are now doing quarterly filings, and we have a program of engaging with critical and potential investors that will help us tell our stories to the people that need to know, and not just putting out information out there that then attracts all sorts of people which will be struggling with. So that is a deliberate plan. And part of that also includes a planned brand refresh for your company, for which that program also is in play. And we all help our messaging and our appeal to all the people that we need to target. So at this point, that's the way I will respond to that. The points mentioned around the stock split is part of what we're looking at as ways of unlocking value for shareholders. And the suggestion made around the possibility of a dual listing is also part of what we're looking at. Coming on board, the number 1 target, the number 2 target, and the number 3 target that this present management received from the board was to take this company to an exchange and list it. And it remains the recurring decimal ever since. But there is a very structured process that we need to go through that gives us a very beautiful story that allows would-be investors to put a premium on how we are valued, that we believe we need to do in a very clinical way, while at the same time creating a blue sky of future upsides, which will actually be the basis of driving sentiments. We're in that process as we speak. We've started fixing a couple of things. One of those things that we have fixed, for example, is recalibrating the lens through which the reserves, the hydrocarbon reserves and resources of this company is being measured from the less stringent Nigerian NNS standard to even the standard that investors globally are comfortable with. And we've done that, and we will continue to build on that such that the subsequent edition of our reserves audit can then establish not just an acceptable framework of assessing us, but also of tracking how we're growing in terms of both reserves additions and production. There are quite a number of things we need to fix in that space that then make sure that when we are getting to the market, we've done everything to maximize the value optics that investors will be able to relate with. So we are mindful of this. And our efforts towards listing is not one where we want to list for the sake of listing. It's one where we must get the timing right so that the valuation from the investing public would be a benefit to existing shareholders. But let me assure you that it's a program that is in play. Practically all our quarterly board meetings is a point of reference that we continue to answer to the board as to how well we are faring on that. In terms of ascertaining the extent of realism in our growth and trying to dimension whether what we're showing you is more of a play out of currency reevaluation as opposed to actual performance, my answer is that we're growing in the real sense of the word. Across, if you strip out the currency tailwind, we're really growing across indices, and we will continue to do that. Now, I think the cheering news for us at this point is that in a period when practically our peers in the industry have failed to operate for reasons of their inability to overcome the operating challenges, we continue to operate in a very sustainable way. As I speak with you today, a number of our operators are operating in the shadow of darkness because regulatory authorities have sealed them up for inability to honor payments of charges, payments of royalties, payment of taxes, payments to all the various regulatory agencies. As we stand today, we are not in default of making those payments. As we stand today, all our vendors and suppliers are paid as at when due, and we continue to post a very healthy cash position. And what I think we have today is a revenue stream that is diversified along currency lines. In the most recent part, being the first half of this year, we've realized a whole lot of that more in Naira receivables because of a tactical reconfiguration of how we monetize our resources. But we needed to do that to keep the ship afloat. The outlook is that we're going to now be a whole lot more in the diversified earning of our currency split of both dollars and Naira. And I think it's a very fantastic position to be in. We are now seeing the true benefit of an integrated energy company, where based on what's happening in the environment, we're able to reconfigure the route we take to monetizing the resources we have. It's a fantastic one. And again, let me assure you, Mr. Dario, that what we're seeing today is not the effect of a currency reevaluation. It is real. And not just that it is real, it is sustainable. On the human capital, on the concerns raised around human capital, it is an issue for the entire industry. In the industry today, people are leaving the big companies that have trained them and are not automatically transiting to the independents and indigenous. They are migrating to Canada, they are migrating to the UK, they are migrating to the US. We've established a strong level of stability in our workforce. not because we are the highest paying, and we do aspire to be premium paying. We just believe that we need the business to be resilient enough to achieve that aspiration. But because we've been able to espouse an ideal for going to work in Niger Delta that goes beyond the naira and kobo that people get from their payslip. We have a sense of mission. We are building something that is very great here. The team spirit and the team bond is exceptionally high. We consider ourselves privileged to work for a company that is redefining value creation in our industry, and that will be a template for many to follow. And that is helping us. But we are not resting on our horse. We continuously are reviewing how we protect our human capital. As we speak right now, studies and work are going on value, on employee value proposition for career development, for placement, for growth, for training and capacity development, such that we will continue to grow our own human resources from within. And is that will form the basis of resourcing the growth we are seeing in our operations and organization. So we are watching it. In instances where we needed to, we've made some tactical changes. There have been aspects of our work today that we have had to work with outsourced consultants that are based outside of this shore in order to provide the services. And we'll continue to adapt as we go on based on the reality we see. Once we pass through this phase of trying to ensure we are standing very solidly, we already have the plans on how to deepen the pool of our young graduates that are coming in, so we can continue to develop a steady stream of people and talent for the future of our company. I'd like to give that as an assurance. In terms of whether we have a brand presence for our refined products, we do, but not in a way that you are probably looking at. We do not really sell to retail off-takers. Deliberately, we sell to wholesale off-takers who then sell the product. But the off-takers are very much aware about the quality and the grade of our product, that today we have demand far in excess of what we're able to supply. And the decision not to be visible, as it were, in the last mile is a conscious decision, because it also has its pros and cons, which we believe we are not yet in a position to be able to manage. And until we are in a position to manage the brand capital of being in the last mile, we are happy to continue to stay where we are. For information, there are off-takers who take our crude, who take our refined products, our AGO, just to blend with some other products in order to improve the average yield or the average quality. And that speaks volume about what we supply. We will continue to watch that space. If in our collective interest we believe that our setup and our ability to manage potential backlash that comes from reputation of being in the last mile, we can handle it, we will consider it as part of our offerings. You asked about the energy solutions we have now. We have energy solutions that start at the base with the crude resources we produce from the ground in our upstream. But we've then added value to that and made that to become processed gas that is supplied on the back of long-term offtake agreements to both the export and the domestic markets. Not just that, we've then further invested in plant infrastructure that allows us to take that crude and break it down to 5 different refined products. So today, we produce AGO, which is our diesel. We produce DPK, which is our kerosene. We produce marine diesel oil. We produce heavy fuel oil, and we produce naphtha. When the regulatory environment becomes a whole lot better, especially in terms of pricing, we are already more than halfway gone in producing PMS. For strategic reasons, we have not switched on that investment because it doesn't make sense for us to produce a product that we are being forced to sell below the cost. But we are well positioned in that space. And I'm happy to also inform you that our investment in the PMS train also comes with the capacity to produce hydrogen. And hydrogen remains one of the future energy fuels, and we are in a position that when we get to that point, we will be a major and a key player for hydrogen. Also, the commissioning of that plant will also see us significantly ramp up the capacity for LPG. And when we talk about energy solution in a sustainable way, what we see of ourselves as a company is moving away from just the basic crude upstream products to more of refined products. So our 5-year strategic plan has targets set for us in terms of what we're already doing, but in terms of new products that include renewables, that also includes LPG. We are still at the exploratory stage of renewables. We recognize that's the future, and we are taking time, but we are putting in the effort to ensure that by the time we are coming to the market, we are not coming to the market as a retail operator. We're going to be bold about it, we're going to be strategic about it, and we're going to be a force to reckon with. As I speak with you right now, engagements are going on with third parties to define and shape the nature of our renewable play. It's not yet matured, but it is something that will start featuring in the near term. And we believe that then sustains our ability to remain future relevant in this industry. In terms of clean energy, in 2021, we further tweaked with our plant process and eliminated routine gas flaring from our operations. We do not have routine gas flaring today in our upstream and gas plant operation. And we are now operating at a level that keeps us within the technically allowable limits, which is very important. We're not resting on our horse because we still have some occasional flare from our refinery, but our work program in the immediate includes an arrangement that allows us to even capture that as well, so that from our operation, you will hardly see any flare at all. So we remain committed to that. We remain committed to the ESG tenets. So it's not just about us cutting out routine flaring. I think what we need to also understand is that the existence of our refinery in itself is an ESG initiative. Why do I say that? If we were not operating, the catchment area that we serve would have been served by people who are into what we call the artisanal refining, who use very crude method, who use very unregulated method to bring their production, and in the process contribute a lot to environmental degradation. So our refinery is displacing what would have been a huge contribution of poor quality products, but in a very, being produced in a very non-professional, non-environmentally friendly and unsafe area. So even the existence of our refinery in itself is a bold statement of our commitment and our contribution to cleaner energy sources. And we do this without creating emissions in our areas of operation. We are investing in measurement devices that help us to even become more aware of emissions that are going on in our areas of operation. We consider our ability to measure what is going on as the first step towards being able to tackle it and continuously drive it down. And that's part of what we're doing right now. You raised the concern around a dividend policy. I'm happy to inform that this same issue has been driven by the board with a mandate for the articulation of a dividend policy. You are bothered about the significant transition of the amounts that were paid prior to now and what have been paid this year. Let me start by saying that the board took a very strong view around the sustainability of our intention in terms of what we're paying, vis-a-vis the cash we are generating, vis-a-vis the need to reinvest a lot of that cash for our planned growth operations. And the board believes and is convinced that we retain the capacity in this year of operation to afford and pay out what we have paid, and that we remain on a solid track, all things remaining equal, to make sure that comparative levels are sustained going into the future without compromising on our need to raise the capital for growing our business. We remain committed to that, and we believe that's a promise we can live with you at the table. You have a very prosperous, well-run, financially prudent company, and one where we continue to look for pockets where we can keep improving the margin and make it the investors' delight, not just for those of you who already are shareholders, but for others who want to come in. On the issue of the biodiversity and how we are promoting natural resources, I think I've spoken to this through my elucidation on the various refined products that we've said. I hope I've covered all the questions, or at least covered 70% of it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Please.
I omitted a point which I would like Adon to put in place, and that is the role that life autonomy has played in this company. I want it to be noted. I don't know if anybody is taking records of what happened in this company ab initio, but I will not be who I am if I don't talk of life autonomy and the role he has played in our ups and downs by the side of Mr. Audit Adams and so on and so forth. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Actually, that will be part of the comments that, and you've just anticipated what is to come. Thank you. Okay, before we, because I have a few comments on the questions asked that have been more than abundantly responded to by our CEO, but I have one or two comments. In the meantime, we are now joined, we have the privilege of having the Managing Director of the NASD. He's joined us in the room, and I would like to have him introduced very briefly. Mr. Lunga. Okay. Yes. Well, okay.
Sorry, I actually had an alternative board meeting.
Okay.
That's what today. My colleagues were online.
Yeah.
I am yet to be confirmed as the MD, but that will probably be next week.
Okay.
I have been proposed.
Okay.
And,
in any event, you're the distinguished representative of NASD. Thank you.
I am happy that you let me in to listen to this.
Absolutely.
Very positive.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
sir.
so much. Yeah, as I said, our Managing Director has responded very, very comprehensively, I hope, to the satisfaction of the shareholders who either ask the questions or who are listening and interested in the response. Before I go on to Dr. Fatono, just one or two comments to expand a little bit on some of the statements from the Managing Director. The level of dividends in real terms, which was a question, Mr. Adeyo. As you know, at the end of the day, the trading results would dictate how much returns you have in your investment, including, the volume or the level of dividend payout. As we all had, but I'm not sure that we've all taken it aboard sufficiently. Crude oil sales, we haven't sold a single barrel since September last year, up till now, so to speak. And in 2020, crude oil sales was something like 80% plus of our income. So that's the magnitude of the achievement of management to have somehow tried to ameliorate this quite devastating, because the crude oil loss, of course, wasn't produced at zero cost. So it's not just that you flow the crude and you lose it. you spend maybe, I don't know, $11, $12, $13 to produce a single barrel. And the crude that we flow, I mean, I'm not an expert, like we have Austin and a lot of other experts in this. I'm told has little water content. In other words, yes, so it's been processed and all that at a cost, and that they've been able to nevertheless find alternate ways, ingenuity to keep on operating and expanding in a sustainable way, I think is very, very commendable. Now, speaking of Dr. Fatono, Mrs. Feishola George and the other founders, of course, Dr. Fatono was the managing director. But I think that we owe a huge debt of gratitude to the founders, the initial chairman, Arita Adams, and all the others, for a clearly outstanding job, very well done. And the challenge that we had was to, because I said the past is fantastic and glorious, but it's history. So the future is present and future very, very important. And it was extremely difficult for us to identify and have on board a new generation to take over and take us to even higher levels. And I believe, or I hope that having had our Chief Executive Officer, that shareholders would have been comforted by what he's told us, that we indeed have identified the kind of leadership that we need. However, a tree certainly cannot make a forest. We have a CEO, we have GM marketing, so we have a whole new team under his leadership that, going by the results so far, and hopefully by what we've heard, we can be confident that we finally found the right team to lead us into the future, because it's not just an uncertain future, it is a future that by its very nature, by the nature of the industry, what we can predict is that it is unpredictable. I mean, that's it, you know. So you need the kind of inspired mindset, because Dr. Fatono, and I have to say, you know, the team of all you founding shareholders produced inspired results. For example, when we started with 1,000 barrels a day topping plant, no one else, I don't know whether they thought of it, but no one else had done it. And then, you know, they planned and achieved a current installed capacity of 11,000 barrels a day. And going by what the managing director said, they're already actively looking. It's not a question of whether we'll expand capacity even further, no question about that. But of course, you know, they need to take all the variables into account in deciding whether to go another 10,000 barrels a day or 20,000 barrels a day. And what this company had thrived on from the beginning was the fact that they did things differently from the other operators. In fact, one of the main motivating factors of you, the founders, was to create an opportunity for all Nigerians potentially to participate in a comprehensive, integrated energy company. And that's what I believe we have. And I believe that we can realistically, based on the plans, I mean, not based on some kind of hope or expectation that's not well founded, that we can expect that we have a team that are competent and nimble enough and who have the capacity. And that's the most difficult thing to find someone that would step in the shoes of someone like Dr. Fatono was very, very difficult. But I believe we now have it. So in terms of dividends going forward in real terms, relative to the drop in the value of Naira and all that. At the end of the day, it depends on the trading results. Now, from the loss of crude sales, I don't know what the figures are. Maybe they can give us an estimate. Had we been able to, let's say, been flowing 5,000 barrels a day, whatever, from September to now, that would have been, I don't know how many millions. Would you hazard a guess? From crude sales. I would guess it wouldn't be less than $20, $30, $40 million.
This was much more than that.
Exactly. So you can imagine if we had the benefit of an additional $50, $60 million, you know, that would go straight into the kind of dividend that would make sense, because as the MD said, well, two things. Your net after-tax profit, of course, isn't cash. I mean, it's all cash. I mean, price earnings per share could be, I don't know, 100 Naira or something. It doesn't mean that you will then base your dividend policy on that. There are many other factors, because dividends is a cash event. And of course, you then need to have the right mix of retained earnings that go into investment, because you have to keep investing. So you know, it's a very careful mix that the management would examine and then advise the board. Which, however, how much dividends to pay. However, what we can say is that if many of the programs they have in place to improve shareholder value, if all these are done successfully, which includes when we have the alternate evacuation route, we will then, let's say we are producing 12,000 barrels a day. The only way to maximize, so both maximize crude oil sales and also maximize refining, is to get crude from third parties. And again, they're actively doing that. So let's say we are producing 12,000 barrels a day, and let's suppose they're able to identify and acquire a further 10,000 barrels a day from third parties. So we can clearly see that we'll keep the refinery busy. At the same time, we would be exporting optimally. And even in the products being refined, as the MD said, again, you know, they carefully examine what to produce, what not to produce. I mean, a big example is PMS. Clearly, there's no point in producing PMS now that you can't recover your cost and all that. However, they are poised to do that if and when it makes sense, you know. Please do, please.
I hope you continue to cater to the community where we operate. This was one of those best things that we started. As soon as this company was founded, a committee was set up, and we wrote templates. It was a committee of us. Samuel Agbaju was our chairman, and we went every monthly or quarterly, all of us, a representative of the audit committee, because I was then chair of the committee, management, representative of women, children, youth, of the community, sat with us, and we asked them what they wanted. Everybody wanted this, that, and the other, and everybody brought a redemption, which is the way we do things. But in the process of making them realize that they must bring tenders, they must bring people who have the skill, who were able to invite some skill, management know-how, the women, their markets. I hope this is still ongoing. It was one of the things that gave me great joy to have participated.
Thank you so much. Well, I can confirm that not only is that ongoing, I'm sure we're even deepening that kind of community engagement for several reasons. First of all, that's the most potent potential security you can have. If the community invested and they feel that they are genuinely stakeholders, you know, then of course, you can't have you can't buy security that you can get from that process. But equally importantly, given some of the objectives of you, the founders, it's the right thing to do. It's not just because it will keep us safe. It's also the right thing to do. And it's, again, as I understand it, one of the objectives when you started this journey, which includes, having a company that ultimately will give Nigerians in general an opportunity to buy shares. And this brings me to the last point I wish to make, which is about, because there's been interest and questions on the question of listing. As the MD said, it's not a question of considering listing or whatever. There's absolutely no question that not only have we taken that very much on board, it's being actively pursued. However, we have to do it in the optimal way, which may take a little time, and we also kind of control completely the timing. But branding, yeah, I think Gafan mentioned the point about not showcasing our talents, if you like. As the MD said, this is clear. I mean, if you're going to go public or you're going to list, in order to get maximum enterprise value when you do list, because you'll be selling the future, and I mean the history is important and all that, which would make your projections either more or less credible. And all of the efforts being made to enhance shareholder value are pertinent. But one thing that I can confirm we've more or less completed is the transition in terms of management and our processes. 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, your company was a completely different animal, if you like. But in the last couple of years, particularly, we have transitioned, which is a key requirement when you're going public. We have transitioned to a company that is not only properly run, we have best practice, and we have embedded processes for every function. And lastly, the most important asset, far more than our current oil and gas assets, is human capital, represented by the management, not just the management, the whole team of those who are running and working in the company. Because that's the most important asset. If you have the right people at the top, if you have the right human resource, it's a capital, just like cash and all that, but that's the most important capital, which I believe we've already transitioned successfully. And this also has a bearing on, I think, a point that Mr. Adeyo made about Nigerians of talent moving out of Nigeria or to other companies in Nigeria. As the MD said, we believe that the best way to keep talent is, of course, competitive remuneration, but far more importantly, and this is a critical factor for us, to make the company and the brand and the environment, working environment, ideal for our employees, for them to actually want to be identified with the company, are proud to be involved with the company, and hopefully will be our best ambassadors when we speak. So that's a very, I mean, it's not an easy thing to achieve. First of all, yeah, pay has to be reasonable, but also our plan is to make our brand a very attractive band, and to have employees, because employee satisfaction is the way they even measure employee satisfaction. We are hoping to have employee satisfaction as high as possible. And I think, to the extent that we're able to achieve all of these various strands, then we can be assured that the lofty goals and programs going forward that we have been told about will indeed be achieved. Thank you. Thank you all very much. At this time, I would like to invite okay, we've answered the questions. In the absence of any further questions, may I invite we are now going to vote in for various resolutions. May I invite the registrars to explain the procedure for voting throughout this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Esteemed shareholders, please be informed that we have captured the voting results for the now 112 shareholders listed by proxy and here and holding 104,552,365 shares and representing 48.13%, 13% of the issued and fully paid off shares of the company. Each resolution will be proposed and seconded. Thereafter, the votes cast will be displayed and announced. The chairman will then declare the results. Thank you.
Okay. Please, go ahead, please.
As I came in, I did fill out
proxy.
Yes. I just want to be sure that you would not, I don't know how that would be integrated, but just so we do not run foul of double voting. Would you kindly please explain how that
Okay.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank
last
you,
minute
sir.
proxies.
I had mentioned earlier, sir, that the 109 shareholder proxy forms received, in addition to the 3, a total of 112, which has now been captured, will be projected once the resolutions are read out.
Yeah, I think the question was about his last minute proxy.
Yes, we have captured it. We have captured it. We have captured your votes. As you marked those forms that we gave, we captured the votes as well for shareholders who have come here presently to attend the meeting. So a combination of both the proxies and those present here will be displayed when the votes are being. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Fantastic. This is an easy one too. God forbid there's ever a problem and you end up in court and on some inadvertent technicality.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. May I, at this point, invite a member to propose the following motion. That the company's audited and consolidated financial statements for the year ended 31st December 2021, together with the reports of the directors, auditors, and audit committee thereon respectively, be and are hereby approved. Will a shareholder kindly indicate their willingness to propose the motion? Thank you, Mrs. Shura Jejo. Thank you. Will another shareholder kindly second this motion? Okay. Would the registrar please announce results of the votes cast?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We would wait for the display of the results for the 109 shareholders and 3 shareholders present in self who have indicated their voting preferences. And here we have a total of 112 shareholders holding 104,552,365 shares, all voting in favor and representing 100% of the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. I hereby declare the motion overwhelmingly carried. Pursuant to Section 426, subsection 1 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020 and Article 108 of the Company's Articles of Association, the company may, in general meeting, declare a dividend for the year in respect of which the accounts are being considered on the recommendation of the directors. The directors have so recommended, and I accordingly propose the following motion: that a dividend of 20 naira per ordinary share be paid to members whose names appear on the register of members as at the close of business on the 14th day of July 2022. Will the shareholder kindly second this motion? Thank you very much. Thank you. And will the registrar kindly announce results of the votes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Please can we project the results for declaration of the dividend? And we have the results projected. We have a total of 112 shareholders holding 104,552,365 shares and representing 100% who have all fully voted in favor of the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. I hereby declare the motion carried by an astonishing 100%. Carried. Before we move on to the next item on the agenda, namely the re-election of directors who are retiring by rotation, I would like to disclose that in accordance with Section 278, subsection 1 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020, that I and Mr. Afolabi Oladele are both over 70 years of age. Now to the re-election of directors retiring by rotation. In accordance with Section 285 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020. I've been informed by the company secretary that Mr. Ede Osonyade and Mr. Thierry Georges are due to retire by rotation at this meeting. In accordance with the company's Articles of Association, I hereby call on both gentlemen, namely Mr. Ede Osonyade and Mr. Thierry Georges, to indicate their respective willingness or otherwise to offer themselves for re-election.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, Ndep 27th, do hereby offer myself up for re-election.
And Theory, do we still have you? Yes. Yes. We can't hear you. Maybe you're muted. We still cannot hear you. We can. I mean, I could, you know, if you read his list, that we can. Okay, can you hear us, please? Can you hear us? Yeah. Can you raise your hand if you consent? Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now that each of the directors retiring by rotation has indicated their respective willingness to present themselves for re-election, for convenience, I crave your indulgence to take the re-election of the two directors as a single resolution. Are there any objections to this? Thank you. I therefore move that Mr. Ede Osonyade and Mr. Thierry George, being directors retiring by rotation and presenting themselves for re-election at this meeting, in accordance with the company's articles of association, be and are hereby re-elected as directors of the company. Can a shareholder kindly second this motion? Thank you so much. Thank you very much. And will the registrars please announce results of the votes cast?
$365 shares, representing 100%, and all voting in favor of the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. I hereby declare the motion carried overwhelmingly, and I thank our distinguished shareholders because, like all the other directors on your board, both gentlemen are particularly qualified and have been contributing immensely to the board's deliberations at all times. Thank you. The next item is the next item on the agenda is the reappointment of our auditors. Deloitte & Touche served as auditors to the company for the accounting year ended 31st December 2021, and they've indicated their willingness to continue to render the service to the company. May I hereby move that Deloitte & Touche's continued services as auditors of the company be and is hereby approved. And I'll appreciate a shareholder seconding this motion. Thank you so much. Thank you. And again, will the registrars kindly read out the results of the votes cast on this motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We look forward to the results being displayed. Oh, and here we have another 112 shareholders holding 104,502,365 shares, representing 100%, and have all voted in favor of the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. I hereby declare the motion carried by total consent. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is for the directors to determine the remuneration of the auditors. May I hereby move that the directors be and are hereby authorized to determine the remuneration of the auditors for the accounting year ending 31st December 2022. And will a shareholder kindly second this motion? Oh, thank you, Mrs. George. And will the registrars kindly announce results of the votes on the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we have the results for the remuneration of the auditor. We have 112 shareholders holding 104,552,365 shares and representing 100%, and all voting in favor of the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. I hereby declare the motion carried. Now to the re-election of members of the all-important Statutory Audit Committee. As I said earlier, they perform a very, very critical role as a further layer of scrutiny. The next item being on the agenda is the membership of the Audit Committee. Before taking that, I use this opportunity to thank the current members of the Audit Committee for the 2021 financial year for a job very well done indeed. The company's secretary has advised that by virtue of section 404 subsection 3 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020, membership of the audit committee is now made up of 2 non-executive directors and 3 representatives of shareholders. For the current year, which is the 2022 financial year, the board of directors has resolved to nominate Mr. Afolabi Oladele and Mr. Ede Osanyade as the directors on the audit committee. I'm further informed by the company secretary that nominations were received from shareholders to elect or re-elect, as the case may be, Chief Bola Akinola, Mr. Femi Akinsoya, Mr. Edi Efekoha, and Mr. Enifolami Gafa as shareholders representatives on the audit committee. She also confirms that nominations were received at least 21 days before this meeting, as required by section 404 subsection 6 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020, and that all the gentlemen have indicated their willingness to serve in that capacity. The underlying nominations were received on the 30th of June 2022, and as a result were not considered. Mr. Innocent Bolom, Ajani Tunde Oluwole, Karim Tajuddin Adeshino, Yusuf Rashid Babatunde, David Abhua Dafe, Yusuf Olaiton Lukman, Ernest Okechukwu, Ige John Kenneth, Ifeanyi Emmanuel, Ige Gabriel Babashola, Joseph Oluwasegun, and Akintunde Gwenga. With the membership limit earlier indicated as 3, and with 4 valid nominations received, each shareholder may only vote for 3 of the nominees. I hereby move that the 3 nominees with the most votes of the 4 persons nominated to the membership of the Statutory Audit Committee, namely Chief Bola Akinola, Mr. Femi Akinsoya, Mr. Edi Efekoha, and Mr. Enifolami Gafa, be elected or re-elected, as the case may be, as the shareholders' representatives on the Statutory Audit Committee. We need to have the motion seconded, please. Oh, okay, Gafa. Please do. Go ahead, of course.
This election is by show of hands. That's the only resolution that is by show of hands in the Act, section 404. It's not by proxy. So the people that are gathered here will vote for the.
I'm not sure that's the position, because, that's because having a virtual meeting as we are, have certain attendant rules, which are different in some respects to the rule where we're all able to gather in person. So I think it's more, well, I'll leave the company secretary to explain, but it's not the same. I think it's still a matter of the number of votes that are actually cast in person or by proxies, because we can't ignore the proxy votes. Please do.
The people that are after proxies, yourself, Mr. Dekete, and Madam Secretary, they have all the votes of the shareholders with them. But these are the proxies that are attending and participating in that meeting. For this resolution below, they will now vote for the people that they think can stand for and act on that audit committee. That's the position. Because, like Oga said, so that one thing that we do now, somebody will go and contest it.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's why I mean you're correct in terms of observing all the rules, all the pertinent rules and regulations. And all I would observe is that a meeting that is largely done by proxy would have different rules in terms of how votes are cast and counted. And I'm sure the Company Secretary can enlighten us further on that. So it wouldn't be by a mere show of hands.
Just to clarify, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to clarify, the proxies will count as individual votes. And that's the way it would occur even if we were having an AGM where members were physically present. The fundamental difference that I think you might be alluding to between the vote for the Statutory Audit Committee and any other resolution is the fact that for other resolutions, any shareholder may actually call for a poll vote, which will then take into account the voters' respective shareholding in the company. However, with a vote for the Statutory Audit Committee members, it is one man, one vote, irrespective of what percentage of the shares is held by the voter. So in this case, we are not doing a poll vote, it's strictly one man, one vote, and the votes of each of the proxy, the shareholders that have filled a proxy form, which we have had duly stamped, is what is counting towards the results.
Is there any room for an indication by those present in terms of counting the votes? You count the votes already cast by proxy.
Yes, sir.
But with the votes of those who happen to be physically present,
they've already submitted their proxy
they've all
forms.
done that.
So
Okay.
even if they vote, they'll be voting twice.
Ah.
Yes, sir. That's why it went from 109 to 112.
Okay, and also I think maybe the Company Secretary may add something to that.
Registrar. Okay, so in addition, I'd like to mention that one vote was counted for each proxy submitted. So we're going to be displaying the result in terms of numbers of each count given to the nominees and not the corresponding shareholding. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, have we had the motion seconded? Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Now, will the registrars please give the result of the votes cast and perhaps add any further explanation that you think might be useful this time around, you know, to ensure that we're in compliance.
The rule for audit committee voting says that it's show of hands.
Mm-hmm.
This is a proxy meeting, so we have counted one vote per proxy as indicated on the proxy form. We have counted one vote per proxy, and the results will be displayed in line with every shareholder that has indicated his or her vote in line with the nominee that they have appointed for the audit committee. The result will be displayed, and then we will see.
Okay, thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. The result is hereby displayed, and we had 65 shareholders tick the buttons for Mr. Bola Akiola. We had 67 for Mr. Femi Akinsoya. We had 67 for Mr. Eddie Efekoha, and we had 2 for Mr. Eri Folabi. I also like to mention that 37 members had voted for more than 3 nominees on the proxy form, which invalidated the vote. Hence, those votes were not counted. Thank you.
Okay. think this is slightly different in terms of declaring the motion carried, because it would have to be so many votes for each of the, yes, okay. Well, according to the registrars, the three representatives of the shareholders on the Statutory Audit Committee, in terms of the number of votes they received, the three that voted in are as follows: Mr. Akinola with 65 votes, Mr. Femi Akinsanya with 67, and Mr. Eddie Epekoha with 67 votes. Yeah. Okay. So once again, I thank shareholders, because particularly, this is particularly evident when we have the opportunity of meeting in person, namely that shareholders take this particular committee very, very seriously, as measured by the enthusiasm of participation and interest in the representatives on the committee, which, as I said earlier, is a very, very important committee which performs a very, very important role on behalf of the owners of the company. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the ordinary business of this general meeting as defined by Section 238 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020. We now move to consider the special business for this meeting. In accordance with the guidelines provided by Corporate Affairs Commission, CAC, for the holding of annual general meetings during the COVID-19 pandemic era, approval of the CAC must be sought before any special business is transacted. We did seek and receive the approval of the CAC to transact the special business stated in the notice of our meeting today. Special business. 1, authorizing director to take necessary steps to implement sections 124 and 868 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020 with respect to the issued share capital of companies. I think maybe this company secretary might explain very briefly how this came about. I think it's to do with a new change which requires which doesn't allow for any part of the shares being unissued. In other words, if you have 10 shares and you've only issued 5, then in the past you were able to carry on your accounts and state that you have so many unissued shares. But the rule now is that you can only have as part of your capital description shares that are issued and fully paid. And since we have unissued shares, as things stand, we need to, as a special business, seek approval of the shareholders that the unissued shares be cancelled. Thank you. And of course, in the future, as and when we need to issue more shares, for example, when we do our listing, we probably involve maybe some new issues. May also involve some sale of shares from existing shareholders, but almost certainly new shares. At such time, we will seek approval to increase the shareholding, such as to create unissued shares that will now be issued and paid. Okay. I hereby invite the shareholder to propose the following motion: that the directors be, and are hereby authorized pursuant to Section 124 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020 and Companies Regulation 2021, to cancel the company's unissued 57,757,782 shares, each of 10 naira nominal value. As I said, there's no change, there's no substantive change, it's just deleting unissued shares. So thank you so much. We have a proposer and a seconder, please. Thank you so much, Gava. Would the registrar once more kindly help us with taking the poll and announcing the results?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the result is hereby displayed. We have again another 112 shareholders holding 104,555,365 shares, representing 100%, and have all voted in favor of the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm gratified to see that this motion has been carried. We shall now proceed to the amendment of Clause 6 of the Memorandum and Articles of Association to reflect the issue shares capital. I think this is in further formalization of cancelling of shares. Yeah. I hereby invite a shareholder to propose the following motion: that the directors be also authorized to amend Clause 6 of the company's Memorandum of Association to replace the words "the authorized share capital" with the words "the issued share capital," and to reflect the issued share capital of the company at 2,172,422,180 naira, divided into 217,242,218 shares, ordinary shares of 10 naira each. Will the shareholder kindly propose this motion? Thank you, Ms. Akinsoya. And will another shareholder kindly second the motion? Thank you, Mrs. George. And will the registrars kindly let us have the result of the voting?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we have the result hereby displayed. We have 112 shareholders and holding 104,552,365 shares, representing 100%, who have all voted in favor of the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Motion carried. I believe there's one more. Authorizing directors and management to act and give effect to the approved resolutions. I hereby invite a shareholder to propose the following motion: that the directors are further authorized to take all such incidental, consequential, and supplemental actions thereto, to execute all requisite documents, and to give directions as may be necessary for the filing of the above stated amendments with the Corporate Affairs Commission and other regulatory agencies as may be necessary to give effect to the above resolutions. And we'll appreciate, thank you very much. And will another shareholder kindly second? Thank you so much. Would the registrar please announce the results of the votes on this particular motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we have 112 shareholders holding 104,552,365 365 shares, representing 100%, and have all voted in favor of the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I declare the motion carried. We're now close to the end of this annual general meeting. However, before we declare the meeting closed, I would like to personally applaud the enthusiasm, always, of our shareholders with respect to the performance of the company. In addition to this, I want to express my profound gratitude to both the executive, senior, and general management and staff of the organization at all levels, whose dedication, hard work, and loyalty keep delivering commendable results year in, year out, and thus an enviable, unbroken record of annual dividend payout to shareholders. On behalf of the board and other fellow shareholders, I say a big thank you to them all. However, as they all know and expect, we certainly look forward to more of the same in future years ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the business of the day's annual general meeting. Thank you very, very much indeed, distinguished shareholders, for your attendance and, more importantly, for your active participation at this meeting, and for all the suggestions, comments, and advice that you proffered to the management. I would also, on behalf of other shareholders, like to commend the members of your board. I believe that this company is particularly blessed with the caliber of the directors on your board. Each and every one of them are outstanding gentlemen with deep, diverse experience and record. And as you can see from, I think it's so in the accounts, from the attendance record of the directors, it's mostly 100% attendance, and I can attest to the fact that they give of their best at all times without any urging, and I would like to thank them on behalf of other shareholders. Thank you all very much indeed. And today's annual general meeting is now formally brought to a close. But before we all depart, may I call on all of us to join in reciting once again the second stanza of our national anthem. Thank you all very much. O God, the God of creation,
direct our noble cause, guide our leaders right, help our youth the truth to know, in love and honesty to grow, and living just and true, great lofty heights attain, to build a nation where peace and justice shall reign.
Amen. Very much. And we'll meet again next year with bigger dividends.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Congratulations.